Welcome to NocBro Nation.
Welcome back, guys. I'm Jarrell.
And I'm Josh, and today we're here to discuss The Walking Dead / Fear the Walking Dead, possibility of a Whisperer's origin story happening in Fear.
Ooh, that sounds amazing. So there was an article from comicbook.com titled, Did Morgan Meet the Whisperers Years Ago? Now, I will show the video clip of what we are talking about. So in The Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 12, Clear, of the first kind of reunion with Morgan and Rick when Morgan was in his clear stage, where he was kind of going crazy, he said a very key word to Rick about some people that he kind of ran into.
Yeah, and this was, of course, when he was in the apartment.
Yep.
Michonne and Rick, and I think, was Carl there? Carl was there, yes. Yep. Came upon Morgan's camp, right? They were walking down that street, and they seen all these booby traps,
spikes, and everything everywhere.
And that's when they ran into Morgan. He's not stable mentally, and that's when he says,
Do you know who I am? Do you see who I am? People wearing dead people's faces.
And that, you know, if you didn't read the comics at that time, you wouldn't have known what he's talking about. But for us who've read the comics, we know, could that have potentially been the Whisperers? And that has been a very big theory for a long time. But there's an issue
that Morgan ran into the Whisperers before we see them today.
Right.
So,
but there's an issue with that.
There is an issue with that. So, episode 12, Clear, season 3 was March 3rd of 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
And I'm reading this here, so sorry, guys, if I look down as I read it. But the comics were actually in volume 18, which is what comes after ARC issues 103 through 108. Now, why does that not make any sense? Well, that's because the Whisperers weren't introduced in the comics until issue 130. So
and that was in August of 2014.
Yeah. So now, one argument against that is that while the comics weren't necessarily at the Whisperers, that doesn't necessarily mean that Kirkman wasn't aware of the fact that he was going to create the Whisperers.
Right.
Kirkman has on many occasions said he knows the entire story of The Walking Dead and how it's going to end. So he could have already thought of this and decided to, tease people by putting it in there as an Easter egg.
Now, the one thing is that Scott Gimple did not know about it. He actually says, he told comicbook.com in 2016 of them asking the same question. And he says, that definitely predated my knowledge of the Whisperers because they were not at all in the book yet. Maybe that could wind up being a reference. So Scott Gimple may not have known about it, but you would imagine the full writer of this graphic novel probably already had that in his mind, even though it didn't come out for another 20 or so issues.
Yeah.
And he could have told the writers of The Walking Dead, give them just this little line. Well, just to say, but most people aren't going to know about it. But then once we get to that point, then it's going to make people who, the awesome people who do the research that go back and look for all this, this stuff, makes you think. Let's put out some theories. So,
so that begs the question: will we get an origin story of the Whisperers with Morgan involved,
with Fear the Walking Dead?
And it doesn't really line up because Morgan's already run into Rick, right?
Well, yeah, so
he's already said people wearing dead people's faces to Rick when Rick was obviously still in the show, and they weren't even at Alexandria at that point. So it kind of takes away the theory of Morgan being involved and meeting the Whisperers, but it doesn't mean that the Whisperers
aren't
around and could possibly show up in Fear.
So the thing
as an origin story.
Yeah, so with Fear, as we know, Fear kind of caught up storyline because they had to cross over Morgan. So we know that Fear caught up to the end of Season 8. Now that Season 9 has jumped 6 years, we could, the reason they're talking about maybe an origin of maybe they run into a person who eventually will become Alpha, eventually become Beta, or somebody just throwing someone in there that they see wearing a mask, but not necessarily, it's not the Whisperers yet. It's just like the origin of it of, I'm only doing this to survive. Like I found kind of like the blood and guts trick that Nick used to do all the time.
And here's the deal, just because Morgan's already said that to Rick doesn't necessarily mean that he won't see the Whisperers
Right.
in their origin story in Fear
Exactly.
and freak out because he's actually seen this.
Mm-hmm.
He's seen them before.
He's seen them before. So now that it's been years later and they come across somebody who is wearing it and, maybe they're not, it's not at that point to the Whisperers yet where they're marking their territory. It's somebody trying to survive and figured this out. Like I said, similar to the blood and guts trick that Nick did, but it still freaks him out like, oh my God, I saw this years ago. Like,
yeah.
I think that could be cool.
Yeah.
It's still in my mind, like, how are they going to do it? Because I want them to keep Fear separate from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's why the show has been so good. But I understand why they crossed over Morgan. It helped a bit, but I really want them to keep it separate because it's the sister show.
Yeah.
So
I definitely do think that crossing over Morgan helped. And I'm glad, and I'm with you. I want Fear to be Fear, and I want The Walking Dead, obviously, to be, the flagship program. There is another issue here, and if you don't want to hear any spoilers for the comics that involve the character of Morgan, please, I'll give you your opportunity to shut off, come back to the video. That's your warning. So comic book Morgan actually dies in All Out War.
Yep.
So with that said, obviously they've kept Morgan around because I think the actor does a really good job, strong
Lenny
character.
James, definitely.
So that's maybe why they kept the character around. But, where's the story?
Right.
They can remix it however they want now that, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is now that Morgan is definitely remaining as a character on the show.
Because you guys have to, you also have to understand, they just lost another big character of The Walking Dead, Jesus, because there are so many characters on that show that they just can't do everyone's kind of origin all together. They have their main characters, they go along with that, they have their supporting characters, but they have to continue to, give those people their time on screen and their origin story, because that was one thing that, I won't get into the rambling of it, but that was one thing that Tom Payne mentions, that he wanted to get into his comic book stuff, and they just weren't pushing it that way.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they could definitely do something with Morgan's comic book piece, even though he did pass in All Out War, but they just need to keep it separate. Morgan is now with Fear. Let's separate that and keep it there. They're not going to Alexandria.
I don't think we'll get any Whisper,
it would be
origin
cool.
story in Fear, but I definitely think that we'll get like Easter eggs. Like that would be even seeing something about an Easter egg would be cool.
An Easter egg
in Fear.
I would be fine with an Easter egg. You don't have to go into like meeting somebody with it on, wearing it to survive.
See like a dead mask on the side of the road, and Morgan pick it up and instantly be afraid.
That would be cool. Like he's just passing by and he sees it, like, and they ask Morgan, what's wrong, and he's like, I witnessed this before. I thought I was crazy, but it was real.
And he wants to get as far away from that location as possible.
I think that would work. Just little hints. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, it'd definitely be cool. Let us know what you think about the Morgan/Whisperer theory. It's been a long time. I've always loved that scene because instantly, if you're a comic book reader, you pick up on that.
Right.
And
but
it was cool.
Yeah, but of course, like we said, if you were reading the comics along with when that show was on, you wouldn't have thought anything. You just would have thought Morgan was going crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now we know, we're like, did this happen?
Yeah.
So cool, guys. So let us know your thoughts in the comments. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Follow us at NocBro Nation on Twitter and Facebook. Once again, this is Josh. I'm Jarrell. We're NocBro Nation.
We're out.